Good morning. My name is Dan Landy. I've been a resident of San Francisco for 25 years. If I were an RPD commissioner and I were walking through the parks, seeing pickup basketball, rollerblader dancers, swing dancers, I'd be thinking to myself, this is what parks are all about. People coming together to enjoy activities they love, meeting old friends and making new ones. How can we create more of this? Well, I'm here to tell you that pickleball is a gift to you. All you have to do is create spaces around the city, and magically, thousands of San Franciscans will appear. They will gather together to play and to socialize. If you're wondering how to make this happen, I suggest you listen to what the community is saying. I have here 4 pounds of email, 288 messages written to the commission in support of permanent dedicated pickleball courts at Stern Grove. The points that the writers of these emails agree on are as follows. Number 1, the few pickleball venues in the city are severely overcrowded. Number 2, a solution has to be found quickly because more players are showing up every day. Number 3, dual lining tennis courts is not a good solution. Pickleball players nor tennis players like it. And finally, the writers agree that creating permanent dedicated pickleball courts at Stern Grove is the solution. So in making this decision, I urge you to take the time to understand the issues and to please listen to what the community has to say. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have Lillian, Lisa, and then Evan.
Good morning. My name is Lillian Kim Murphy. I'm a 30-year resident and an avid supporter of Rec and Park. You have done a stunning job at preserving open space with a variety of recreational venues. Sport fields, gardens, playgrounds, and tennis center all serve as a beacon of civic pride. But now there is a new game in town, pickleball. It is not a fad or window dressing. It is a new essential in recreation, and the number of players are exploding locally and nationally. RPD is presented with a golden opportunity to create pickleball sites in the city. It's a mystery why we are forced to behave in a model of scarcity when there are a plethora of tennis courts and 4,100 acres of rec and open space. The crucial part of pickleball is open play, and multiple courts at one site is fundamental. The game is unique because it builds community without trying. We put our paddles down and play with the best San Francisco has to offer. It's diverse people. Dual lining tennis courts is a huge concession for both tennis and pickleball players. Pickleballers would like dedicated courts with nets. If numbers matter, the footprint at Stern Grove in the Sunset can fit 8 pickleball courts and delight 32 pickleballers versus 2 tennis courts and 4 tennis players in one session. The wait times for play is daunting at the Presidio Wall and Lewis Sutter. Goldman reservations are gone in less than 5 seconds at 12:30 p.m. 8 days in advance. The Sunset District already has 7 sites with 14 tennis courts. There are only 11 dedicated pickleball courts in the city. The need for dedicated pickleball courts is immediate. We are asking the commissioners to be open and nimble to support the Stern Grove Option 1 proposal. If approved, we can relieve the pent-up demand and allot time for RPD to strategically plan for more sites. We cannot wait for a suggested Larson or Clay Court project, which has not been approved, budgeted, or supported by the neighboring community.
Thank you.
The time is of the essence, and Stern Grove is an easy and obvious solution. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
we
you
have
very much.
Lisa, Evan, and then Laurel.
I wrote it down so I won't go over, or I'm trying not to at least. Good morning. My name is Lisa Shaw, and I'm an active member of both the tennis and pickleball communities. Currently, there's a huge misconception by some very vocal members of the tennis community that pickleball is on a land grab mission to take over all the tennis courts in San Francisco. As someone who plays both sports competitively, comparing pickleball to tennis is like comparing apples to oranges. Pickleball players love open play. We don't need or want individual courts around town. We need central locations with multiple dedicated courts like at Lewis Sutter or Hill Rec in Novato. For those that are not familiar with pickleball, the same 2 tennis courts that accommodate between 4 and 8 players for 90 minutes translate to 6 pickleball courts accommodating 24 to 48 players each hour, and that's having to wait 1 game. Currently, we're waiting 2 or 3 at Presidio Wall and Lewis Sutter because of overcrowding. In terms of taking over tennis courts, I'd like to put this into perspective. According to the Park and Rec website, not counting Golden Gate Park, which you have to pay for, there are 120 public tennis courts. 20 of them have lights. There are 52 pickleball courts, which include the 6 dedicated courts at Lewis Sutter and 2 lined volleyball courts. Pickleball only uses 16 of 120 courts, none of which have lights. Creating 6 to 8 dedicated courts at Stern Grove would not affect the 120 court count, and in fact would return 4 of those 16 courts back to the tennis community by making Parkside dedicated. For the record, I am not a proponent of converting popular tennis courts to dedicated pickleball courts, but I do believe that these 2 courts at Stern Grove will not be missed or make a difference. In fact, not one person that spoke last week on behalf of tennis mentioned their personal attachment to these courts. I know that if the courts in question were Mountain Lake Park or Presidio Wall or DuPont, the neighborhood would have come out in droves to protest, and I would have been on that side. Park and Rec has a unique opportunity right now to accommodate a huge amount of San Francisco pickleballers and help alleviate all the overcrowding at the current pickleball locations without hurting the tennis community.
Thank you.
It would be great if we could come together and find new solutions for future locations, not existing courts, which will of course be needed considering the rate at which pickleball
Thank
is
you.
growing and how quickly Golden
Sorry,
Gate Park
your
is
time-
turning over
sorry, your
new
time-
players from their clinics.
Thank you.
Okay. Evan, and then Laurel, and then Hans.
I'm Laurel Schaefer Trent, and I have lived in San Francisco for 37 years, and I wish I had discovered pickleball a long time ago. I first heard about pickleball at my 50th high school reunion a few years ago. Some of my classmates live in Florida, and they mentioned a game called pickleball. At the time, I thought, oh, how cute, and that was that. But back in February, thank goodness, my delightful neighbor Lois mentioned that she plays pickleball and would I like to try it? Sure, I replied. Well, she invited me to accompany her to Lewis Sutter Courts. A few days later, she told me about the free lesson every Tuesday at Presidio Wall. She accompanied me the next Tuesday. I was absolutely enthralled and so excited to learn a new sport with so many other eager beginning students of all ages. I returned for a second free lesson, which is the limit because the lessons became so popular, and continued to play and have clearly found one of my life's passions. I have met dozens and dozens of gracious, welcoming, and patient people willing to alter their skill levels so that less advanced players can participate in games with them. Even though P-Wall, Presidio Wall, is my favorite place to play, I have played at 5 other courts, all of which have been very busy, which is why we need more dedicated permanent pickleball courts. What drives me nuts at most courts, including P-Wall, is trying to figure out what color paint determines the kitchen line, the sidelines, and the baseline. I am grateful for the pickleball courts we already have, but we are outgrowing our existing courts, and I, along with many other players, are desperate for more dedicated pickleball courts, especially at Stern Grove, where 8 new courts are shovel-ready. As an example of how popular pickleball has become, the CBS television network is airing a 2-hour nationwide
Thank you.
pickleball special tonight at 9 p.m.
Sorry, your time is done.
hosted by Stephen
Thank you.
Colbert.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have Evan, and then Hans, and then Bill.
Hi, my name is Evan, and I grew up outside of Boston, and I had a pretty typical childhood. I got decent grades, I had a lot of friends, and I always loved being around sports. I went to college in Massachusetts and graduated in 2007. That summer is when my girlfriend, and now wife, got a job in Kansas City, and I decided to move with her. We were always on the move for her job. We lived there for 3 years, Charlotte for 3 years, and Tampa Bay for 3 years. During each move, it was a bit daunting to make friends, especially because I've always worked remotely. So I played a variety of sports to stay active and also so I could meet people, and luckily it worked every time, and I still have a lot of close friends from those 3 cities. I played volleyball, kickball, soccer, softball, tennis, flag football, spike ball, and basketball. In 2017 is when we moved to San Francisco. I was 32 years old at the time and was very excited to start another chapter in our life. It quickly became our favorite city. I again started playing a lot of sports, knowing I would eventually find my people, but I was wrong. Everyone was very friendly, but unfortunately I was unable to make any close connections. I was a bit sad, but more so confused, and wondered if it was me or were people too busy with their jobs or addicted to their phones. I didn't have the answer. Of course, the pandemic hit, and that affected everyone. In February 2022 is when everything changed for me. That is when I found pickleball. The sport itself is very easy to pick up, and it's full of lots of laughs and smiles between each point. It's fun, it's competitive, and it's the most social community I've ever been a part of. I now play 5 times a week, and I finally have a place in the city where I can call home. I went from having 2 friends in the city to now having over 50. I don't think there will ever be a sport created in our lifetime that brings this much joy and excitement to people's lives. I know I am the happiest I've ever been, and it's all because of pickleball and the pickleball San Francisco community. And right now, like everyone's mentioned, the courts are getting too crowded, and we need more dedicated courts so more people can experience this happiness.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Hans, Bill, and then Susie.
Good morning. My name's Hans Carter, and I've been playing pickleball for about 6 years, and I'm also a long-term member of the Pickleball Working Committee that meets with Rec and Park, including Commissioner Louie. I've seen the sport grow from a small group of dedicated players and to huge numbers of regular participants playing locally today. Pickleball is still considered America's fastest growing sport with over 5 million participants nationwide. I want to talk about the court situation in the city. Pickleball is played in 10 outdoor public locations in the city. And according to Rec and Park figures, tennis has 140 courts citywide. Pickleball has 52, or as General Manager Phil said, 60, but that includes the 6 closed at Stern Grove. However, only 11 of these pickleball courts have permanent nets. The other 40 courts are all dual-line tennis courts with time-limited access and which require daily net servicing, meaning volunteers to set up, take down, and store equipment when these courts are given over to tennis. All 140 tennis courts have permanent nets, but only 11 pickleball courts in 2 locations also have permanent nets. Now, dual lining was appropriate 6 years ago when pickleball was getting started and demand was limited. Since then, 16 tennis courts have been dual lined for pickleball, creating 40 pickleball courts. But it's also resulted in friction with the tennis community. So we think dual lining is now the wrong approach to meet the ongoing demand increase and overcrowding that we see. With all the media attention recently given to pickleball and its explosive growth, we think that the dual lining strategy should be abandoned and create an 8-court permanent pickleball facility at Stern Grove. It's the best resource planning option for adapting to the changing recreational choices being made by the public today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Bill, and then Susie, and then Nate.
My name is Bill Lafferty. I'm a native San Franciscan. I retired 16 years ago. Since then, I've worked within the community. I've worked on historical streetcars on Market Street. I have been a diver in the aquarium. I've worked for many years in Golden Gate Park with the gardeners. And for the last 5 years, I have volunteered with the San Francisco pickleball community in an attempt to get permanent pickleball courts in the city. This effort is becoming unsustainable due to the lack of permanent pickleball courts. For example, we supply 3 on-site metal construction storage boxes, also 2 wooden storage boxes, 2 rolling carts. We supply nets to 2 middle schools and the Excelsior and Don Fisher Boys and Girls Club. We supply 4 rec centers, and we have 4 outdoor courts for a total of 48 nets, 60 paddles, all through donations from the pickleball community. Park and Rec supplies 6 rolling nets. We need 8 permanent courts at Stern Grove so that we can play on our own time schedule, not Rec and Park's schedule. There have been over 100 volunteers, over hundreds of hours put forth to keep access available to the community by the community. It is time for Park and Rec to step up to the plate and support the pickleball community. And I have the letter from the young kid.
Go ahead. I'll restart your time for the letter. He's reading someone else's comment.
So this letter is from a 12-year-old boy, Ashley. He would like to be here, but school will not let him out, and his folks have work scheduling. They have allowed me to speak for him. This is his letter, not my letter. I started playing pickleball when I was 8 years old. I played with my dad, mom, and sister, and my grandfather when he is in town. Most recently, I have gotten my friends into it, so we have started playing together. The fast-paced, quick game, fun for all levels of athletes, made me, my friends, and 4.8 million other pickleball players fall in love. The game itself is not the best part of pickleball. It is the community. Everybody is supportive, welcoming to all players, no matter age or pickleball skill. I remember when I was 10 years old, I had a soccer camp at Paul Goody Field with a 2-minute walk away from the pickleball courts in Presidio Wall. The camp would end at 12 p.m., and by myself, I would walk up to the pickleball courts, eat my lunch, and then go play pickleball with the community. I did this every day for 2 weeks, and never in the time did I not feel welcomed and encouraged to be there. I believe pickleball community is why the sport is so popular. The game itself is just connected the pickleball community. However, it's hard to grow this welcoming community when the courts are so crowded. On a weekend before COVID, there were 35 people. Now there's 100 players plus. This makes me and my family have to wait 20 to 30 minutes to play a game. It's discouraging to invite my friends to pickleball just for us to play 3 games in 2 hours. I would love to have a pickleball league or tournament in the city for kids. The courts are too busy and there are not enough of them to play. Let's work together to change this so we can grow the amazing pickleball community. Thank you, Asher Bren.
Thank you very much.
President Buell, we're now at 15 minutes of public comment.
Let's keep going. We have a couple of more comments, and then they won't have to stick around and hear
Okay.
some of the mundane issues we deal with.
I have Susie and then Nate.
Hi. I was born and raised in San Francisco, so I know it pretty well. Anyway, so you've already heard that pickleball is growing in popularity, but I want to reiterate that there is an immediate need to have more pickleball courts in San Francisco. The current courts at Presidio Wall and Lucid are fully utilized. More importantly, they are way overcrowded. On a recent Saturday, there were over 90 people on the courts the wait to play was substantial, with 24 people playing and 70 waiting to play. I'm going to quickly go over my view of the presented options that were given at the town hall meeting. Option 1 was dedicated courts at Stern Grove gives the city a chance to meet this urgent need. It is the only option that is viable because it is shovel-ready and is paid for by the PUC. Also keeping in mind that these courts were underused by tennis players. The proposed option 4 of converting the croquet fields at Stern Grove to pickleball could take years and therefore does not address the immediate need. On the other hand, converting the croquet field at Stern Grove to tennis courts would give tennis players their 2 courts back. Tennis players don't have the same urgent need since there are already 137 public tennis courts. This would satisfy everybody's needs. Proposed option 2 to have pickleball courts at Larson Playground is totally unworkable. It could take years to get through the process since it would be eliminating basketball as well as tennis courts, creating the need for more town hall meetings, which would inevitably bring opposition from athletes and neighbors. Converting courts at Larson would displace many children who I personally have observed playing basketball on those courts after school and on weekends. Further, the cost of courts at Larson would come out of the RPD budget, and there is very limited street parking. Proposed option 3 of dual lining the tennis and pickleball is a temporary solution that has run its course. Both tennis players and pickleball players dislike this, and it is not a pickleball court without a net. This leaves option one as being the most viable option that will meet the immediate need and a very large and growing diverse pickleball community.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I have a diagram of the Stern Grove
Okay, thanks.
tennis courts, pickleball courts, sorry.
Next, I have Nate.
Good morning. My name is Nate Valentine. I'm a Bay Area resident my entire life. I've lived in San Francisco for about 20 years and been very active in the bar, restaurant, businesses, and throwing parties and things like that. And I've seen community in San Francisco. You've heard the word community probably 100 times this morning. I want to give you a little bit more description of what that means to me. This community is the most diverse racially, economically, age, and culturally that I've ever been a part of in San Francisco. That community is not formed by single line courts in single places in San Francisco where we might be able to reserve a court for 30 minutes. That community is formed in a 6-court, 8-court environment where there's conversation that takes place before the game, after the game, as you're waiting for a game. And that's where you meet people for the first time in your life. If I go to a court that's reserved for an hour, I'm going to make a reservation with Kat, Mark, and Vanetta, and we're going to meet together. But I'm not going to have an opportunity to meet Larry, Joseph, and Philip, and Larry Jr. So that's why it's important to build 6-court centers. Stern Grove is one that can be built now, and it enables San Francisco to do the right thing for the citizens that are asking for that. It also asks you to do is not stop there. There needs to be one more of these facilities somewhere else in San Francisco, ideally in the north part of town. I don't want this to be about tennis versus pickleball. I want this to be about what's best for San Francisco and for you guys to figure out that path as we will put you in this position to do for our city as a whole. Please support the community of San Francisco and the people that are here in front of you, as well as all the people that play together. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the room who did not fill out a blue card? Okay, come on up.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Paolo Pavoni. I am a San Francisco resident since 1992. I was born and raised there, and I just want to talk to you about the Junior Warriors program. Basketball, youth sports in general, has been very important to me growing up in San Francisco, and I think basketball especially, since we are the home of the best team of the past decade. I believe it's a bit inexcusable that there are not that many teams being allowed to play in the Junior Warriors program. I believe last year there was only 8 fourth-grade teams allowed in the entire city of San Francisco to play. Growing up, my peers that decided to leave sports were either incarcerated or ultimately passed away by I was 21. I see these kids in Potrero Hill neighborhood, specifically the Live Oak School, being shut out again this year for basketball. And Live Oak School provides education to kids from all socioeconomic backgrounds, not just rich, not just poor, it's everyone. And I feel like if they're continued to be shut out each year by year, they might, ultimately lose interest in sports. And I feel like San Francisco, to get back to where it needs to become a family-first city, and that starts off with the grassroots sports program. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time. And
Thanks very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further public comment. We don't have anyone on the line with their hand raised either. Public comment is closed, but we will have another opportunity at item 9. Okay, we are now on
Commissioner Anderson, you had a
Oh,
question?
I'm sorry.
Did you?
Go ahead.
My mic is on.
Yep.
I just wanted to seek some clarification. I believe, and Commissioner Louie is going through this, and maybe Commissioner Griffin, we have ongoing community input meetings, right, on the pickleball issue? When's the next meeting? Anybody know?
So, yeah, Commissioners, you should all know I think we're going to try to come to you in January at the commission meeting with some possible next steps to help to grow the sport. And just a reflection, since you asked, is that this is a great sport, and it is very clear that a lot of people play it and a lot of people enjoy it. But it is a sport that is emerging quickly, and government, public spaces, public facilities, sometimes it's hard to pivot on a dime. And I think my team who also, we have a lot of pickleball players on our staff. We are doing our best to figure out creative strategies to try to meet the growing need. We've got a few more ideas that we're developing, but this also can't just be a SF Rec and Park responsibility. There are other land managers, other spaces, public and private, that also have to work to try to grow the sport. But we're gonna do our best with the facilities that we have. And the public comment that really resonated with me the most, and I appreciated it, was, let's not do this by cannibalizing somebody else's preferred recreation. Let's do this by adding more recreation, right? Like, let's create more. And we're down with that. That's how we want to approach it. You know, we're going to keep working on it, and we've got some good things brewing.
Thank you very much.
That's exactly what I was hoping to draw out. I really appreciate everybody coming out, and we are definitely on it.
Commissioner Louie.
I just want to say, community,
You're on.
thank you for coming out. I know you're here today, and if you weren't here, you'd probably be on a pickleball court. So we all understand, not just today, that this sport is growing faster than there are courts in San Francisco. And so we hear you. We've heard every angle, and there just aren't enough courts in San Francisco. We've also heard that I'm a converted racquetball player to pickleball. Okay, I didn't go from racquetball to tennis to pickleball. I went from racquetball to pickleball. I like the pace of it. I don't like waiting either for my turn to play, because the sport, we understand, it is not the department's problem. It's like the sport is growing faster in the world than with players of our age and even the younger players. So with the lack of courts, they tried the dual lines. We understand that. When I play on a dedicated court, and then I play on the dual lines, I get confused. Maybe it's my age, I don't know, but I get confused which line I'm playing. So I understand your voice about wanting more dedicated courts. I also want to commend the department for doing what they're doing to look for a balance between tennis and racquetball. Pickleball. So everything like in San Francisco takes time. So it's not that, we serve as an oversight commission to the department. And I think all of us know that the health benefits of playing this game it's just resounding. We know what's going on, we see what's going on, and we see the struggles, and it is confusing. So we appreciate your patience, and we will, like General Manager Ginsburg says, they're doing everything they can, and he's a pickleball player himself, and so
Not a very good one, but I am an enthusiastic one.
And I invite, the other commissioners, if you want. I got plenty of paddles at home. I know Evan would take us out, right? Lillian, and we can try the game. I just want to say, for those who don't know, it's ping pong on a tennis court. And it's a really fun game, and we know it's growing, and we know ages throughout San Francisco love the game. So thank you for coming today.
Commissioner Griffin.
I wanted to address the gentleman that was the last speaker. And I noticed we got some letters, General Manager Ginsburg, about basketball leagues not being available. And I'm just wondering what the progress is on that. How are we working on it?
Sure. Our superintendent, Nick Williams, is here. So we have about 130 teams signed up in our Junior Warriors program in various age groups. So we have the gyms that we have. We are hopeful and Nick, you can come up and, why don't you come up and I'll just turn it over to you. You can talk about what we're doing and how we're trying to do it.
Good morning, Commissioners. Currently, we have 132 teams that are in the league active to start in January. There are another 40 to 50 teams that are waitlisted. Before we can actually get those teams in the league, we have to make sure that we have enough referees, that we have enough gym time so that the quality of the playing experience is not diminished because we have overgrown it excessively. Our goal is to have each and every team in the league, but it's going to take us a few more weeks to make sure that we have all the gym time and that we have everything that we need to run the league successfully. So currently there are over 130 teams that have been admitted into the league. Another 40 or 50 are to believe to be on waitlisted, and our goal is to have all those teams to be entered.
And just Commissioner Hallisey's not here, but he and I have actually talked about this. It's also worth noting we're not the only game in town here. There are actually nonprofits and other youth basketball leagues in San Francisco that use other facilities that are not ours. So we're going to do our best to make sure that everybody's accommodated. But similar to the pickleball conversation, we have the facilities that we have, and we do the best that we can to program them without compromising other very genuine, legitimate, and important recreational activities that are happening in those spaces. And then the one addendum, because it came to me about this conversation, and I wanted to share with some of the folks that are here today who are enthusiastic, and thank you for loving your parks, and thank you for wanting the recreation that you want. We're good with that. We get that. But in terms of the multi-lines, while not ideal, in a city, we have to learn how to share our space. And the example that I will give is a while back, we had a similar challenge with youth sports and youth soccer when we converted a bunch of grass soccer fields that needed to rest for a period of time into synthetic turf. It was pitched and controversial for different reasons. But when we went through that process, we lined all of those fields are not just lined for soccer. They're lined for lacrosse. Some of them are multi-purpose soccer and baseball. We have some that are lined with hash marks for youth football, and not ideal either, right? Lines, Commissioner Louie, to your point, sometimes lines are in different colors and they can be a little confusing. But in the dense city that we have, with the open space that we've got, we try to come up with creative solutions that facilitate as much play as possible. So, while we are going to continue to work on dedicated spaces, but we actually are proud of the fact that we've gone out and relined over 50 courts in the last few number of years, for both sports. So not perfect, but a start.
Yep. I had one follow-up question back to the basketball. How do we go about recruiting the referees? I understand that that's a problem.
Currently, because we are in excess in the teams that we currently can handle, we're going to have to hire a referee agency to come in and assist and bring in another number of referees to facilitate these games to the tune of about $14,000 to $16,000
per season.
Per season.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me make an observation, and then we'll move on with the agenda. In the big picture, we clearly hear you. I think it needs to be recognized that in urban areas, and this is happening all over the country, pickleball is a phenomenon, and the challenge is finding space. And in a densely populated city, land values are such and competition for space is such that it's a real challenge. Excuse me, having said that, we're also heading into an economic downturn with office spaces. In this morning's paper, you can read taxes are going to be declining, and the competition for dollars are short. So with land short, dollars short, and an increasing sport, the challenge is simply that much greater. So I want to frame that and say that I'm delighted to hear we'll hear something more in January. And we're going to work hard on this. Every day, a different national newspaper has a headline story about pickleball. And so you're on the winning side of the curve, but you're also on the challenge side of the curve to solve this problem. So, and I think there's, just as an afterthought, there's room in the private sector here to do very well if they can figure out realigning spaces that are underused to take advantage of this growing phenomenon. So we'll continue to look at it. But thank you very much for coming today. We appreciate your comments.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We're now on item 6, the consent calendar. Is there any public comment on the consent calendar? In room 416, okay, seeing none. Do we have any hands raised on our public line? We have one hand raised. As a reminder to those of you raising your hands, this is public comment on the consent calendar